Hello and welcome to the Hunting Illinois podcast. With me today, we got the whole crew. So we have Dan, Reed, Lauren, and Curtis. So today we're going to be focused on giving updates again. We still have lotteries open for the state, so we'll go over kind of the list of lotteries that are open for this fall and what you need to do to apply for them. And then we'll go over our schedule and what we're coming out with our workshops and different archery events. And then we'll go into kind of season prep. So we're in August, it's coming. So we're going to talk about what we do now, so that way we're not rushing when October 1st comes around. So what are we doing right now, waiting for the season to come and all that. So with that, if you want to start off, Dan, with kind of the lotteries that are open for the state, and we'll get those reminders out first.
Sure. Yep. So one of the big ones that actually just opened up here a few days ago is the free upland game permit. So this is a permit that, again, like its name says, it's free. So highly recommend submitting that application. It's basically to hunt upland birds on a specific IDNR site. So when you go to apply, there'll be a big list that you can pick the sites that you want to hunt and then pick specific dates, and they'll kind of pick by order. So if your name gets drawn, you'll be awarded the first permit on your list that's still available. Some of those other dates may have already been claimed by an earlier applicant, but make sure to get those in. That ends August 31st. So you have the entire month of August to get that in. I also recommend checking out the public lands hunting reports that IDNR puts out. They have not released one yet for this past year, but looking at even some of the historical ones, just to make sure that the site you're putting in for has good pheasant habitat, actually has birds that have been harvested there historically, gives you a decent indication of whether you're wasting an application or if you might actually get a decent hunt put together. So definitely check out those free hunting reports, and we'll put a link down in the description of those public hunting area reports.
I think they just came out with one because I was checking it when I applied, and I think were 2 years behind, and now they're only 1 year behind.
Hey,
so I think because when you go there, it shows you what link you hit last, and it was already purple, and there was one above it. So I'm like, hey, they might have came out with the 2022 to 2023 year. So there is some new data on there.
Yeah,
if you're curious. But yeah, so check that out and just look at whatever kind of patterns you see.
But I highly recommend checking out. The first time I put in for this free upland permit when I first moved to Illinois, I ended up getting drawn at a site. Went out to the site. There was very little pheasant habitat. There was no hope of ever seeing a pheasant. I went through the historical records, and there hasn't been a pheasant harvested there in well over a decade. So I kind of burned that application. So just check out those hunting area reports. Make sure there is birds there to harvest before you submit that application.
Yeah, it may or may not be difficult to add or take away sites on that list. So they might be grandfathered in from years past when there were birds there. And then don't get that confused with the controlled pheasant hunt either. So don't. There are 2 applications on the DNR website. Make sure you read which one you're applying for. The controlled pheasant hunt is also on DNR sites, but these aren't the wild birds. These are ones that you can, even right now that's opened up, you can register to pick a day to go out and do a controlled hunt where they take farm birds out, put them on a landscape, and then you can hunt them that way. And so don't think that that's the same thing. And those usually don't get booked up, and they're all over the state. So that's something, if you don't get pulled in this lottery for the wild birds on these select sites, you can always go back and do the controlled hunt if you're just trying to get out and get started doing some pheasant hunt or get your dog out or something like that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I personally never put in for the controlled pheasant lottery, even if I'm going to go do one of the controlled pheasant hunts, as long as you pay online, I think it's 2 days before your hunt date. I have never run into an issue where there's no spots left, unless you're trying to hunt like the day before or day after Thanksgiving or Christmas. Then there's a lot of people in town. You're probably going to see a little competition, but 9 times out of 10, I'm able to just go ahead and register online, pay the $30 fee that it costs to hunt through that program, and then just go out when that day hits. But I'm glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm. Up next, now this one is getting closer to ending, but we are still in the 3rd lottery application period for deer firearm and deer muzzleloader. That ends August 16th. So if you haven't submitted that application, go ahead and do so. Starting October 15th, all of those permits that have been unclaimed through these lottery process will become over the counter. And they're kind of sold on a first come, first served basis. So that's October 15th is when those become available over the counter. But you have until August 16th to get that last lottery application in. One more quick one that doesn't open up or isn't open up at the moment, but it opens up in about a week and a half. That's the public duck and goose application that opens August 15th. And so that's similar to the free upland game permit. It's a free application period to essentially get permission to hunt a specific IDNR site on a specific date. Again, highly recommend checking those public lands hunting area reports before you submit that application as well. But again, you have until August 15th.
And on those public hunting reports that do the harvest report there, the waterfowl's at the very bottom. It's a different, if it's different tables. So if you're scrolling through and you see your site listed, you'll see like dove, pheasant, squirrel, deer, waterfowl. Keep scrolling. It's at the bottom, and you'll see the waterfowl numbers as well. And then also a good idea to look up the different sites and see kind of what their site-specific regulations are, or at least what their description is on what it looks like. Because some sites they might give you a boat, some sites they don't. Some sites is a walk-in. Some it's very different depending on the landscape that they have there. So as you prepare to apply for that free lottery, make sure you kind of have an idea of what site you're applying for and what that might look like for you.
Absolutely.
The waterfowl data is really some of the best data in that report because they separate it out by season. So you can really look and see some of the areas do really good in teal season. Some are really good during the normal duck season, and some really get good late in the year when it's only goose season. So you can look at that broken down by season and kind of tailor your hunt that way. And it's not perfect, but it's definitely it's nice to have a little bit more information when trying to plan a hunt, especially if you might be a lot of us are going to be traveling for waterfowl hunting. Most of us don't live right on the marsh, so all the data you can, all the numbers to try to swing the luck in your favor, I'll take it.
Yep, absolutely. That's kind of all I've got for application deadlines. There's a few kind of news items I'd like to touch on. One of the big ones that just came out.
The Bobcats in September, so it's still.
Yeah, I think that opens September 1st. Yep. So that's upcoming. But a few news items. So the Illinois DNR has released their newest digest of hunting and trapping regulations. So you can find the digital version now on the Illinois DNR website. The physical version will be coming soon, as well as a Spanish and Polish translation of those digital versions. So if you're looking out for those, just keep checking the Illinois DNR website, and you'll see those populated once they are complete. The nice thing about the digest is it's very easy year to year to see the changes. And so if you're ever flipping through the digest and you just see a section that's highlighted yellow, essentially what that means is that's a new change from last year. There's only a handful. There are a few that I wanted to touch base on. There's more than we're talking about, but some of the big ones is it is now legal to use a 410 for spring turkey hunting and fall turkey hunting. So that has been changed. So now hunters can use a 410 as well as a 28 gauge. So historically, the rule was kind of written you had to use between a 10 gauge and a 20 gauge. Now the regulation has changed that it's now between a 10 gauge and a 410. So you have a whole plethora of different firearm gauges to choose from for turkey hunting now. So that's a cool change.
And that's going to start next year, not this fall.
Correct. It goes into effect January 1st.
Yep.
Correct.
Just make sure fall turkey hunters still got to use the 20 gauge if they want a smaller gauge. Yep.
And then one other quick regulation change that I wanted to talk about that was pretty well pronounced in the digest. If you're hunting Champaign County, Douglas County, Macon, Moultrie, or Piatt County, you can only harvest antlered deer during the month of October. Last year, it was October 1st through the 15th. Had this restriction. Now they've expanded it to the entire month of October, just trying to grow the population in these counties to kind of their appropriate county goals and their county level. So if you're in Champaign, Douglas, Macon, Moultrie, or Piatt, you can only harvest antlered deer during the month of October. Once November hits, it goes back to normal statewide regulations, and then you can harvest your antlerless deer then. So those are just a couple quick changes in the digest. Again, there's a few other regulation changes, so definitely look through it. Look for those yellow highlights, as that gives you a pretty good indication that was a regulation change.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk at all on why they might be not? Why are the deer low in those areas? Because you had an assumption. We didn't ask the biologists on why they made these reg changes.
Correct.
But do you want to talk about your assumption, or do you not want to?
It's pretty. It like you said, it is an assumption.
We can skip this if you want.
I mean, the biggest thing is it's just not, the population is not at their management goals. It can be big EHD die-offs like we had in 2012, and then we had a similar one a few years ago that can hurt that population. It could just be habitat. I mean, if you think about these counties that are listed, there's not a ton of forest habitat around. It's very ag dominated. And so in a nutshell, it's really just the population of deer in these counties is not where DNR wants them. And so they want to reduce that doe harvest, which will increase deer recruitment for the next year and allow those a little bit more does to survive and add, 1 or 2 babies each year. So it's just trying to grow it to whatever level DNR wants in those counties. That's all they're doing. Mm-hmm. The cause of that decline, I'm unsure, but again, could be EHD, habitat, a whole plethora of things.
Sure. All right, so that's it for updates for state news and things like that?
Yep.
All right. Curtis, you want to run us through kind of what we have going on as a program and what we're closing out the summer for and going into the fall?
Yeah, definitely. So exciting time of year. I know it's still super hot out there, sweaty, scorching, all that kind of stuff, but we're definitely starting to think about fall. We've even had people out squirrel hunting already, so it's definitely bitten the whole learn to hunt staff pretty bad. But event-wise, we're doing pretty good too. We've got a bunch of stuff posted. A whole bunch of stuff coming up later this month. Our 3D hunting simulation archery shoots. These archery shoots are super fun. They're a little bit different than probably the other 3D archery shoots you've done. First off, they're completely free to enter, so you've got no reason not to come out and see where you stand. And we kind of design these things so that's what you can do. See where you stand in terms of, are you ready to actually go archery hunting, right? Because a lot of us are firing arrows wherever we can, in our basement, in our garage, out at the shooting range, and maybe we're doing pretty good. But in hunting, we're throwing some different variables, and we try to throw a few of those at you with these shoots. One of those is the yardage is going to be unknown to the archer. You step up to the shooting mat, and you've got to estimate that yardage with just the tools on your body, no electronics. You've got to estimate that yardage and fire one shot in order to score. And we have a bullseye that's roughly right in the center of the vitals of each target, so you can see that. And then we measure how far you are away from that. If you hit too far away from the vitals, it's a deduction. So there are some times where people could actually choose not to fire, or they may miss completely, and they might do better than somebody who hits the target in a bad spot. So that's to simulate wounded game. So we try to do a few things in there, try to give you some different shot angles. We're going to be in a mixture of field, woods, and these are temporary courses. So we set them up for one day and then they're gone. So whoever is the shooting champion is the shooting champion of all time, because that particular course will never exist again. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, we've got 4 of them coming up around the state. Got one coming up in the Champaign area. Got one coming up in the St. Louis metro area. Got one coming up in the Springfield area, and then one coming up in the greater Chicago area. So check out our website, sign up for those ASAP, because just a few spots left, and a few of them have even been sponsored and have some cool prizes. So while just knowing that you're ready for the hunting season should be the best prize at all, some of them will even have some little bonuses that will help you get ready for the upcoming season. So check that out, sign up. Registration is required. They are free, but just a few spots left. And then after that, we're going to have our slate of Learn to Hunt Deer 101s. So our 101 level classes are the completely intro level. So if you've never harvested a deer before, if you've never even hunted before, this is where you start. We try to start from the ground level and try to, in one fell swoop, in one class, try to give you all the information that you need to go out and hunt deer. Now, it's a little bit like a fire hose and you're trying to take a drink from it. I get it. So you may have to circle back, and that's fine. It's not a one and done type of thing, but we hope everybody who is new to hunting will check out these 101 deer, and hopefully it'll be enough to get you started. And we'll give you some resources at the end of those that'll help to plug you in, like into our social media. Follow us there. And then our biggest event of the year is coming up in late September. September 28th is Illinois Hunt Camp. So we'll tell everybody that comes to all these Deer 101s to hopefully sign up for that. And everybody listening gets signed up for that. The ticket link's already there. You can find it from our webpage. And we even have a whole webpage built all about Hunt Camp. If you Google search Illinois Hunt Camp, it'll come up. Going to be awesome. We're back at Deacon's restaurant and bar at the golf farm. So this is a giant golf driving range, which means it's like this huge open field. which is awesome because it gives us a lot of room to do stuff. So we're going to be doing archery. We're going to have some new educational stations this year. One of them that we're really excited about is archery after the shot station. So we get these questions all the time, especially with archery equipment. All right, I've done my work. I've got close to an animal. I fired a shot. I think it's good. Now what? We're going to be talking about all that at a station, and it's going to be really immersive and fun. We're going to be working with the hunter safety education team with that one. Excited about that, and we're going to have a lot of the educational stations from last year. Going to be a lot of fun. Of course, the biggest thing is we're going to have over 50 mentored hunts to give out. So everybody that's looking for any mentored hunts, all adults, I should say, this is the place to go. This is, as far as I know, this is the largest allocation of mentored hunts for adults anywhere in Illinois that you'll find. And you want to sign up right now. Early bird tickets are only $10. That includes all the giveaways, all the food, all the educational stations, everything you could want. So practically giving them away, and that's going to be your shot to get these hunts. And I don't want to talk about it yet, but we're on the verge of lining up, really close to lining up some really awesome hunts that I really want to talk about, but I won't yet because they're not 100% finalized, but just say they're going to be pretty exciting, and everybody's going to want to win a spot on these new hunts we got. I mean, all the hunts are awesome, but these new ones we're working on, I mean, I want to win them. Jeez, you know.
You be the mentor on them.
Cliffhanger. So
I mean, and today, you go to McDonald's and it's $15. I mean, you're already making what you would pay just in your dinner alone. You get food for $10, and then on top of that, you get to meet people and try to win mentored hunts. So I mean, it just pays for itself right there.
Yep.
And then and kids are free. So I mean, they're just come for the food. I mean, literally,
come for the food, the fun, the camaraderie. And if you did attend last year, we got quite a few comments. You know, people traveling an hour or two to get there, that it kind of ended a little bit too late to allow people to stay to the full event. So we actually have shifted it quite a bit earlier in the day. So be privy to that. But it's currently scheduled from like 12 to 5. Mm-hmm. So that gives us ample time to get everything done where it's, still daylight, allows people to still have plenty of time to get home safely after the event. So we think that time frame will work out. And that was, something we got quite a bit of comments and questions about if we could try to adjust it. So it is a little bit earlier in the day, and we hope that fits with people's schedules a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah. So now maybe you're a little bit of ways away. Still, this is the event to come to. I'm sorry we hold it up there. That's where we have all of our people. So it might be a drive for you, but this is the only event like this that we do hold. So hopefully holding it at that time gives you plenty of time to get there before and after, or make a weekend out of it. Stay up there. I've heard there's really good places to eat around, and I'm sure it'll be a fun trip. But you don't want to miss this one wherever you are in the state.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty full slate. Full slate. Check out our website and get registered. And if you're going to be at Illinois Deer and Beer Fest, we'll be there. We'll be running a booth as well as giving a few seminars. We'll be at the state fair and a few other events. So if you happen to see us out and about, the next month or two, stop by and say hello. We're always happy to chat, answer questions, and just talk. It's always fun.
And if you're an established hunter that likes to share your appreciation of the outdoors with others, definitely stop by and talk to us, because we are still taking donated hunts for hunt camp and fishing trips. It's any outdoor experiences. But these are for folks that are just trying to get into the outdoors. And if you've never taken somebody new hunting, it's like going hunting brand new again for yourself when you get to see that through somebody else's eyes. So it's like the gift that keeps on giving. And if that's something that interests you, definitely talk to us, because we're looking for just taking somebody squirrel hunting on your favorite piece of public land, showing them the ropes, taking them fishing on a piece of water where fish like to hang out. We're not looking for fully guided with, stay up in a 5-star lodge. I mean, we'll take that if you want to give it. But basically, these folks are just looking for a way to get in the outdoors with somebody who's comfortable and a chance to pick your brain and learn some things. And it means the world to them when they win these things. So definitely, if you're interested in that, talk to us, and we'll chat about what we can do.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's get into a little bit about what we're doing right now for season prep. So I was thinking we could probably split it into two different things. So what are you doing like gear wise and at your house right now and trying to get everything organized? And then we'll talk about if you haven't gotten out yet, what you plan on doing for any type of early season scouting or anything like that. So is anyone practicing right now or doing gear stuff, or what are you guys doing right now at home?
I'll kind of jump in here first. So I've been doing quite a bit of shooting, going out to the range and getting myself and my wife settled with the shotguns a little bit. We both drew pretty good deer firearm tags, and since we just don't get a ton of opportunity to shoot, we've been taking the opportunity. So heading out to the range probably 2 or 3 times a month the past since about June. Went actually to Turkey Run this weekend, and they have a couple archer ranges nearby, so we brought our archer equipment, dialed that in a little bit too. So feeling good about that kind of stuff. But what I've really been diving into is, like you said, getting all my gear ready. Mm-hmm. What I've noticed is, and it's probably just my personality type, when the hunting season's over, I'm ready to move on to other things, and I just kind of shove all that stuff and it's going in that room, just get it in there. And so now it's pulling all that stuff out, realizing, oh, you left a banana in your back, just little things like that. And then I picked up a canoe, getting ready to do a lot more waterfowl hunting on public land. So that kind of increases my opportunity quite a bit. It needs some little TLC. So kind of in the process of patching a few holes and getting that thing all built out for this upcoming fall. So that's kind of what my focus has been on, is very gear and practice oriented.
Mm-hmm. I think Dan's due for a big buck this year. I'm calling it.
I think so. I hope so.
Due factor.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I mean, I went back. Reed and I went out maybe like a week and a half ago now to do a video on tree stands, and I was looking at my pile of hunting stuff I have. And I got to switch out all my turkey. I looked in my fanny pack. That's my universal fanny pack I always take out, and I still had all my turkey calls in it and everything like that. I'm like, oh, I got to put those away. So things like that. So shifting over from spring when I piled it all in that corner and kind of going through it, make sure I get all my calls back together and everything like that. But also just going out and making that video, I looked at my gear, and my tree stand's 20 years old, and I started really looking at it. Because we're talking about safety out there. I'm like, man, I have some unsafe things with this tree stand. So
it's worn.
Yeah. I got some rust coming in on my on the cable that goes around the tree. So I'm gonna order new cables this year and make sure I'm safe out there. So that's one thing I'm thankful for with this job, is it puts safety front of mind when you're trying to tell people about it. So
you're always thinking about it.
Man, I need to switch this out. So and I'm not lighter than I was. So that's something that's on the forefront of my mind, is making sure I get all that switched out and safe wise. And then just looking at broadheads and looking at my arrows and make sure I got enough from what I used last year, and looking at my bow and making sure my string doesn't need replaced. So I'm definitely way more safety minded than I was when I was a kid. So I'm looking at all that stuff now and making sure that I'm replacing what needs to be replaced before the bow shop's overrun and everything else, and everybody else waits to the end of September to rush in there and try to get their stuff.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because one more thing we actually just did this past weekend is we sat down and I put together a big shipment of ammo. So we live in Champaign, and we used to have a Field and Stream that was very advantageous. I could normally always just walk in there and pick up some kind of shell. It may not be the exact one I was looking for, but it was something that would suffice. And now that we don't have that, I have to plan a lot further in advance. So we kind of sat down, okay, we're going to do some goose hunting this year, some duck hunting, some pheasant hunting, and just went ahead and ordered, a pretty big shipment of ammo. Just that way it's one less thing to worry about. Slugs too. Yeah. Slugs get hard to come by in this state if you wait till, end of October.
Yeah.
And so you had to purchase those things ahead of time.
A year or two ago, you had to go out of state to find a slug.
Yeah, I had to go all the way to St. Louis to the Bass Pro Cabela's because I just could not find a slug, and I waited till too long.
Yep.
And I was not doing that this year. So.
You didn't have to.
And if you've never ordered ammunition online in this state, it's a little tedious at first, but once you find a vendor or a store that will ship it to Illinois, once you get your FOID card and all that housed on their system, it's fairly routine just to reorder. So I just found one that works well, has decent prices, and I just keep ordering from the same people.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty much doing the same thing of Dan and Jason. I'm making sure all my gear.
Can you get a little closer to your mic, Reed? Hard to hear you there.
All right. Yeah, I'm pretty much doing the same thing as Dan and Jason right now. I'm making sure all my straps are up to date on my tree stands, making sure nothing's fraying, because you don't want to fall out early October and your deer season's gone. So
yeah,
that's Also getting in reps, man. Like if you're hunting out of a tree stand, try goofy angles because you never know where deer are going to come from. You may have that 190-inch buck walk by, and it's a goofy angle that you haven't practiced. Want to make sure you're getting ethical shots in and stuff. And then also just kind of, like Dan said, I'll kind of throw everything in last minute and getting it all together and figuring out what I'm going to do with my pack. So.
And this is the kind of prep work I really enjoy because it's like you get to dream. You know, the hunting season isn't here yet. You haven't messed up yet. You haven't missed rut already. And so you just have this whole hopes and dreams out in front of you of what the hunting season is going to be. And just allowing myself to just like get lost in that daydream for, a couple hours is pretty fun for me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Got the whole rest of the season to mess up.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like when football's starting up too. Your team's not in last place yet. Like,
Exactly.
Anything can happen.
The Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pivoting because last year I with my Hoyt, my string, I hit my stand, string jumped off, missed a shot, all that kind of stuff. And so this year, I don't know if I'm going to get in shape to hunt with my recurve or not. But right now, I'm shooting my recurve a ton to see if I can get there. I don't know if I'm going to get there or not because I'm not there yet. When I was a kid, I shot my recurve a ton. Like probably every day I was shooting that thing. I went frog hunting with that thing very successfully, I might add. And now I, barely touch the thing. So I've been on it now for a couple weeks and I'm starting to build some comfort, but I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be close if I can get in hunting shape by hunting season or not, but I know I've got my Hoyt as a backup. So I am still shooting that a little bit, but I'm trying. I'm hoping to hunt with my recurve this year, but it's unknown.
Yeah, talking about hunting shape too. If you are hunting with a bow, you want to make sure you're in shape to be able to pull your bow back. But if you got a crossbow or something like that, it's good just to get out walking right now. I know it's hot out, but mornings and evenings, if you haven't really been doing anything this summer yet, try to get out walking with a dog or just go around the block a couple times. You don't need to be a marathon runner in Illinois to get where you need to get to. You're not going up and down like hills like out west. But if you do want to try to go a mile into the woods and try to drag a deer out, it's going to be a lot easier to do it if you start moving around now. Just do anything you can. Yeah. Anything you can is better than nothing. So, so it's something to keep in mind as well as we're getting closer to the season too.
Jason, you mentioned, here you touched on it real briefly about sharpening your broadheads. I think that is something everyone should take a look at because it can make your life very easy once an arrow's fired and it passes straight through. So
absolutely.
I think everyone needs to take the time just to make sure it's sharp, and if not, go buy new ones and sharpen those.
Yeah, I'll never if I shoot at a target or through an animal, that's not getting shot at another animal until it's sharpened to my specs ever. I'll buy a new one or throw it away before ever firing twice the same broadhead.
I'm the same way, and that's kind of why I personally made the switch. I grew up shooting fixed blades, and then I fell for, all the social media marketing. Oh, you're getting these huge wound channels. So I switched over to mechanical. I had great luck with them for a long time. But what I found is every time they went through an animal, they were always marred up enough that they almost became a disposable thing, a one use, and then you have to replace it. Where fixed blades, they look just like they did when you got them out of the package. So just touch them up a little bit, like Curtis said, make sure they're nice and sharp and move right along.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I prefer fixed blades these days.
Cutting paper.
What's that?
I always test them with cutting paper.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to cut paper, that's good with me. So,
yep. We don't have one yet on how to sharpen a broadhead, but there are some good YouTube videos out there on how to go about doing it. And also, you can, if you have a specific brand of broadhead, that brand probably has a way to sharpen it on YouTube somewhere. I've seen that as well. So you can go for brand specific.
A lot of them sell even a brand specific sharpener.
Yeah. Yeah, because there are a lot of broadheads that are on a certain angle, and then they make what's called a jig, and then you have your broadhead go inside of a jig, and then that jig is so that way it's angled the right way, and then you sharpen it that way. So something to look into if you're interested in trying to reuse your blades, or even checking the sharpness out of the package. They might not be as sharp as you'd like them to be, and you can sharpen them up before using them as well too. Just something to keep in mind.
And since we're talking about broadheads. I've never bought a pack of broadheads that didn't come with a practice head. There may be brands out there that don't include one, but send a few arrows downrange with that practice broadhead and just make sure, because it will fly depending on the broadhead type you're using, a little bit different than those field tips that you're used to practicing with. So I always shoot at least 3 or 4 arrows with that practice broadhead that's basically the same shape, just dull, so it doesn't destroy your target too bad. But just look to make sure it's flying similar. Make sure you're still dialed in when you're using that versus your field tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I try to shoot a lot more arrows than that with my broadhead too, because you really got to tune. I feel like you got to tune to your broadhead, because your broadhead is going to affect the plane just a little. It's not much, but I usually do have to adjust my pins a little bit from field points to broadheads, and then I leave it there, and then I kind of get used to where my
that's exactly how I am.
Yep. Off, and I just stay there. But I still, once I have my practice broadhead marked, I'll mark it with a Sharpie or something. I'll try to fire that once or twice every single time I'm firing, just so I'm also doing that and getting a feel for how it goes. But then I'm never going to use that for hunting. That's my practice. And actually, I do use the Montex currently, and they do sell. I bought a whole pack of the practice blades, so they're not sharp. They're made to be completely specs, but they're not sharpened to begin with, so they're perfect practice heads.
Nice.
You just don't want to mix them up and accidentally shoot that at an animal. That would be
yeah. I forget what brand I'm shooting these days, but luckily the practice broadhead is like a very dark blue, so it's pretty easy to spot.
Yep, I mark all mine just to make sure I don't have a mistake. All mine have like bright pink or orange on them, so I'm like, no good. It's like a 22 gauge shell, right? Stay away. But another thing, other than practicing, is getting my cameras ready. So I don't have them out yet, but this is the time. I already had them out last year, but I was more gung-ho to go for a big buck last year. But soon it is time to definitely get your cameras out, because right now bachelor groups are hitting Beanfield, seeing some pictures coming in, and it's a good time to start your scouting. Not that those bucks are going to be in the exact same spot come season, but it's never too early to start to get an idea of where bucks are moving, what they're doing, and who's around.
Yep, for sure.
So for gear, I just got a shotgun. Well, I guess I'm picking it up this week. I guess the system for the background check has been down because of the whole CrowdStrike thing from a couple weeks ago. So he's like, I'm starting it. He's like, you have to come pick it up this week. But once I get that, making sure the length of pull fits. If not, taking it into a gunsmith, getting the stock changed up a little bit if I need to. My husband practicing with his crossbow. We're both planning on going to the trap range to just start practicing with the new gun, especially. I know he needs to sight in for slugs for deer because that's more of his thing. Re-waterproofing my boots, retreating all my clothes.
Yeah, that's a big step. Yeah.
Retreating all my stuff for ticks. Just
and you said you guys have been going to quite a few of the IDNR wing shooting clinics too.
Yep. We've got one of those near the end of August. So going to that, getting some good practice in. My husband's trying to figure out which pair of underwear is the lucky underwear, so he's ready for deer season. That's his current test. So that's just that kind of stuff. Loading up on ammo. He's definitely been. It's like more his thing. He's definitely been going through and doing all that, and just kind of checking out Army surplus type stuff. Looking for some good rain gears, kind of on our list to kind of get squared away.
This is the time of year where buying equipment can be pretty good. I got a few emails from Bass Pro this morning, with their big flyers and stuff, and they've got quite a few big sales going on. So it surprisingly is a pretty decent time to buy hunting equipment. The closer we get to November, I may retract that statement, but right now it seems to be a pretty good time.
Especially
and we're both pretty new, so we don't have a ton of we're okay for the firearm side of things, but it's more like the gear, trying to figure out and do rather than doing it all at once because that's expensive, especially for two people. So,
and I like buying used. I buy the vast majority of my stuff. Footwear is where I personally will spend money. That's one thing that I will buy on the upper scale of that, just because foot comfort's pretty important. So that's one thing I do spend on. But a lot of other stuff I just buy used these days. I've bought plenty of decoys used. I bought a canoe used. There's a ton of different options out there where you're not breaking the bank, and you can get something that, maybe with a little bit of TLC or a little bit of work goes a long way, especially duck decoys. You can buy duck decoys for like $1 for, a pack a dozen that may not have any color left, but just get out some Sharpies, get out some spray paint, have a couple days of fun, and you can make those decoys look good enough to trick your average duck when you're out there. So there's a lot of opportunities. So you don't always have to think, oh, I got to go to Bass Pro and buy the highest end of everything.
Well, that's why the online military surplus is really nice, especially for women, because if you go to a big one, you can usually find used women's stuff as well. So it's like much cheaper, but also, cut to actually fit. And I've got a bunch of Jacob's old like military stuff we have rolling around. So we've got some jackets and things like that, but just kind of going through, making a list of what we have, what we need, that sort of thing. But I'm very excited for my shotgun. So
I bet.
It feels like it's been a process, but like it really hasn't been that bad. It's just like I thought I was coming home with it Saturday, and no. So, and he did buy his state archery tag as well.
Oh, good.
While we were out. So, although he thought he was getting he thought he was getting deer, the deer and turkey, and they gave him like the antlerless deer and something else for deer. So he's like, okay, I guess I've got 2 deer.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that's probably an important topic to just kind of talk about when we're talking about preseason and, getting ready for the season and all this preparation. If you're buying your license or permits from a vendor, always double check that what you asked for is what you've got. Because I don't know how, pretty much every time I've bought one, there's something, oh, I didn't need that, or you didn't do that right, or, oh, you didn't even ask me the questions for HIP. Did I actually get HIP registered? Mm-hmm. And so if you go to a vendor, a lot of times they might not be hunters themselves. They're just somebody working there behind the counter for that day. So definitely take time to double check and triple check before you rely that they know what you need. Make sure you know what you need before you even go. Because a lot of times they're, like I said, just not as educated. They don't know. It happens. So just always double checking. One thing I have noticed they started doing, especially at, some of the Walmarts and stuff that I've bought from recently, they actually require you to now sign them right there, which I think is a nice step, because a lot of people forget that permit or license is not valid until you sign it. So that's another thing. Just keep in mind when you're buying them, just sign it right then and there, and you never have to worry about it.
And we got our duck stamps all squared away and had to reprint our hunting licenses because God knows where the last copy went. That's also, I'm sure we were like, this is a very safe spot. And then like, no idea.
Yeah.
But it was fine because we didn't have our duck stamp on there. So I prefer we don't lose these ones. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's, paperwork, ammo, gear, just kind of applying for permits, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And personally, I haven't done a ton of scouting yet. Luckily, I'm at a point where I have a pretty good understanding of what, the normal deer herd does at the public land pieces I hunt. But even if personally I was hunting a new area, I probably wouldn't have done a ton of scouting yet. Now is when I'm probably really starting to think about it. And one thing I'm watching a little bit closer this year than other years is ag progress. I think that's going to be a bigger indication of what deer are doing, especially a lot of the sites we hunt. Mm-hmm. They're a big chunk of timber, but it's surrounded by nothing but ag.
Yeah.
And you really
most public land sites in the state.
And you just don't see the deer on those pieces of public land congregated until a lot of that ag starts to get harvested and come out of the ground. So that's a lot of what I'm watching right now is just, do people think we're on track to harvest at a decent time? That kind of thing. It's still a little early to tell, but here in the next couple of weeks, we should have a pretty good idea of what harvest looks like and kind of when, as long as weather and rain.
That would be a neat thing to look at, specifically when you put cameras out. And like we've talked about in the past, I know Curtis has a really great write-up, and that might be on our website. If not, it's the Outdoor Journal, on how to manage your photo data and stuff like that to where it's useful for you. And I think going back through and looking at the images that you got, and then also going back looking at the harvest report and seeing what percent ag's out of the ground, mm-hmm. and seeing how that changes the deer movement on a landscape for that site would be really interesting.
I think so. And especially, I think it really plays in like, the second or third week of the season, because the first week of October, deer they've had the run of the place for 6-7 months. They're comfortable. They haven't been harassed. They're back to their normal, just bed to feed pattern. And throughout that first week, it trends that way pretty closely. And then they start picking up on pressure. Oh, they're getting bumped out of their beds every morning at 3 now. Oh, they got shot at. Oh, they got shot. And so that's normally when I start to see them like really go back to the ag. They can live in a cornfield. I mean, there's food, there's water, there's bedding, there's safety. They can just stay there. And so I think they largely do through, kind of the middle of October until those crops start coming out of the ground. And then they go back, to the forested areas, and then rut hits, and that's when it all breaks open. So yeah, I do watch ag quite a bit, and I plan on continue update throughout these podcasts on kind of what things are looking like across different parts of the state. But pay attention to ag because it's important in the state.
About 3 years ago, I shot a doe early morning, and then I got down on my stand. I was hunting on public land, and there was an ag field next to it. Corn was still up. And so I got down on my stand, walked over the doe, and then I was at a hedgerow, and then in the next field over was the corn. And it looked like a truck was driving through this corn. And I was
just
like,
from
what is that? And then it came out, and it was close to what's behind you. I mean, it was the biggest buck I've seen on public land ever.
Yeah.
And it came out, looked at me, I looked at it, and then I was standing over the doe, and I'm like, what's up?
Yeah.
And then he went right back into the corn and just drove away, as it were. I was just like watching a pickup truck driving through the freaking field.
His rack's just so big, it's hitting all the stalks.
Yeah, it was parting the stalks out. Going, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, holy cow! But he could have been in there all day long, and you never would see him until he comes out and then goes back in. Crazy. So as anyone else putting up, it's been hot out. I know a couple people went squirrel hunting, and you could definitely scout deer while squirrel hunting and this early of the season right now. You guys see any deer sign when you're out walking around? I know Lauren got out a handful of times this past weekend squirrel hunting.
Yeah, we saw a ton of bedding. The dog was very happy. He found several piles of poop. He was very excited. But yeah, lots of Jacob, when we were looking for squirrels, ended up flushing a bunch over, on Saturday and Sunday. So they're there. We saw a lot more deer than we saw squirrels.
Yep.
Squirrel hunting's difficult this time of year. In the next week or two, it should start getting a little better. We've talked about it quite a bit, just back and forth throughout the day. It's just hard. They're not really keyed in on a food source quite yet. They're just kind of scattered around. There's a bunch of leaves still on the trees.
With all these walnut trees, where's the squirrels?
Yeah.
What are you guys
in a couple
doing?
weeks, they'll start transitioning to them, but it's still a little early. I think you were talking about, you just saw a squirrel just eating nothing but just bark off of a tree.
Yeah, there was walking around the neighborhood, and we have plenty. I mean, we have acorns dropping already in some parts of our neighborhood, but he was eating a branch. And then we scared him off. My dog scared him off. They're on a leash and walking around the neighborhood. And then when we came back like 20 minutes later, he was back on it, and that branch got totally stripped. I don't know. He was going to town on the bark.
That's funny.
I felt a little vindicated though, because like when I come home, like it's hot, come home, it's like 9:00 in the morning, and the fact that like my neighborhood squirrels, which I know are out and about, like there's a ton, when they're just like not around, I'm like, okay, like it is hot, like it's not a me problem, it's it's hot, they don't want to be dealing with it, but it was good to get out, walk around. I mean, it was very buggy, but getting in better shape, just squirrel hunting with the dog is it's good exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So
no doubt.
I've been creating fake deer sign, and by that I mean.
Can you talk up a little bit, Reed? Having trouble hearing you still.
So I've been creating my own deer sign. Some mock scrapes I've been messing around with on public land or private land. My bad, private land. And I'm curious to see how they work out. I put a rope out and left it to where it can untangle all the way, and I cleared out the ground below it and put some liquid on it that they came with, and hopefully we got some deer using it here pretty soon. So
did you put a camera on it?
I did. I put a camera, and I ran a few cameras, and one thing I live by this time of year is don't check your cameras weekly. Let them sit for a month or so, and no reason to be putting your scent out there this close to deer season and mess something up. So, yeah. But
cool. Yeah, curious to see how those do.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you created a mock scrape that's kind of got like a slow drip to just continue to add new scent to that scrape.
Yep, because I soaked the rope, and I'm sure it's probably dried out by now, but that stuff's going to be in the soil, and the bird glands in their feet are going to be able to pick that up and stuff. And something, because I've done a bunch of research on this, and a lot of people are like, human urine doesn't quite do the trick or stuff, but I've been hearing some things now where our ammonia levels are close enough to deer where it tricks them for a little bit. So if you come across a scrape and you don't have anything on, and you want to take a pee break in the scrape and add some scent, that's going to trick them a little bit. So
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of people doing that. I've never done it myself, but
did you select a current scrape to make your mock scrape, or did you make a new one in a brand new location?
I made my own in a new location. It's on a field edge, and there's trails coming out. And it's pretty much in between two trails. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be a decent spot. It's field edge. They can see a little bit and be visible while they're making the scrape if they want to be. And just took a weed eater out there and just got it down to bare soil. And then I took a twig and scraped it a little bit to get that topsoil a little loose, like a deer's been digging. And you have to be real careful about your scent or about your sweat, because I sweat a lot, especially this time of year. You don't want your sweat dripping in there, because then the deer glands are going to pick that up, and I ain't ever going to use it. So got to be real cautious about your scent doing this. I use gloves and everything to make sure scent wasn't on the rope and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it works on a field edge in private, because on public, it's like you make a mock scrape on a field edge, you're going to get every little buck. The big bucks will stay away from it. You got to make them in the woods where a community scrape already exists for the big bucks. But that's on private ground where there's a ton of activity. On public land, sorry. On private ground, it could be completely different. So it'd be cool to see what pictures you come up with.
Yep.
I never tried it. I've always just I've done like drags from already current scrapes and stuff like that, but I've never really made one. But again, I usually on public land. I love how we just keep switching those in and out. But on public land, I tend to not mess with stuff too much.
For me, especially on public land, every other hunter sees a scrape, and so 9 times out of 10, if I have an area I would want to make a mock scrape, I probably want to hunt it.
Yes.
And if I make a mock scrape, I'm just going to bring other hunters and educate them that, hey, this might be a good area. So on public, I personally don't. But
rule of thumb, if you see a scrape on public land, so is everyone else.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Another thing I'll also do on private land that you have, I guess, the privilege to do where you don't on public, is make licking branches. Bend those back about head high and
and so if you're unfamiliar with a licking branch, essentially over every scrape you'll find, usually there's going to be an overarching branch that's maybe 4.5, 5 feet up, not terribly tall, and it's going to be directly over that scrape. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see the little end of that twig just kind of broke off. It'll still be dangling there just a little bit, and we kind of refer to that as a licking branch. So as he's in there working the scrape and he urinates down his legs, which then the urine collects on his pheromone glands that he has inside his legs and then deposits on the ground. While he's doing that, he's going to be up here working this licking branch with his antlers, which also has scent glands at the base of the antlers. He'll be licking it, and again, just depositing more and more scent.
Mm-hmm.
But and a lot of times when I see a scrape without a licking branch, I'm like, okay, there's a mock scrape.
Yeah.
It's something a lot of hunters don't spend the time to put up. And so a lot of times if I see a scrape on public land and I don't see a licking branch, I usually kind of mark that. That might be a mock scrape.
The one mock scrape that I saw that was 100% a mock scrape was there was a vine, like a poison ivy vine that was hanging there, and they cut the poison ivy vine. So it was a cut vine dangling over up the scrape area. So I'm just like, all right, the guy cut the vine, and I'm like, that was a good idea. But I can clearly see that was a man-made thing. But it's pretty amazing that they're just walking around and looking for like the perfect spot to put scrapes.
It's weird. Once you start to like develop the eye of what that licking branch and scrape will look like, you can just start walking around. Oh, there, that's a good spot. You might see a scrape there, and occasionally you'll get to a spot and you're like, oh my god, I actually pinpointed that. It really is weird how much of a requirement that little overarching branch is.
Yep, that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyone doing anything else scouting wise? Anyone putting cameras out or anything yet? I guess Reed's been the most active with doing that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I leave cameras up pretty much all year just because I like looking at wildlife, and I recommend going ahead and spending the money on lithium batteries because I've just had the best luck with them. Going on year 2 with these right now, and they should last, but the cold and heat, just a fluctuation of Illinois weather really burns out just regular batteries, in my opinion. So spend extra money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've just been using squirrel hunting as our, see what's around us.
That's my favorite way to deer scout. Absolutely.
I will say too, I was excited. We actually saw some rabbits. Like, I feel like I don't see rabbits in the woods very often. So that was exciting.
It's a nice change.
I know. I was like, oh, like I said,
Keep that in mind for the fall.
Yeah, for real.
I know, right?
We're on a high cycle.
Yeah. I guess that was my other prep too, was just seeing how my dog was going to do, first ever squirrel hunt. Not that they were super active, but I was very proud. His recall is a lot better than I thought it would be, given everything going on.
Sure.
So
that's half the battle.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, like at least now we have a starting point for all three of them, like us and the dog. And, didn't get any squirrels, but the dog got a great walk. So, like...
Probably a great walk and a great nap the rest of the day.
Oh yeah, he slept the rest of the day. Like he was tired. Got home, hosed him off because he was muddy. He was a muddy little monster, but he had a good time.
I like that.
That's the other big thing I'm working on too, is getting Echo ready for the upcoming season. Dog work never stops, and so hopefully getting ready this will be her first year hunting. So we'll see. We'll start her off hopefully in either dove or teal. I don't know yet, but hopefully I'll get out for one of those two, and that'll be her first test. So we've been doing a lot of light retrieve works and working our way into it in a positive way. So we haven't done any like blind retrieves yet or any doubles or anything like that, but we're going to start working our way that way, hopefully here towards the mid or late to August. So we've been doing a lot of retrieves on the water, and she's been getting her feet wet, with that. And because that's been a whole new, labs love water, but also it's like that scary thing of all of a sudden, oh, now there's no ground, and I'm not sure that I know how to swim. So she has to get over that like each time, but she's getting better and better. And so hopefully we're going to be ready to go this season. But we're working on it, and she's having a lot of fun. So it's all good.
That's cool.
How old is she?
She just turned 1. So
okay.
Last year she was too young to hunt. I was thinking maybe if we got like a late snow goose or something to bring her along, but this will be her first time in the actual woods.
Yeah, I had low expectations for my hound. I mean, he's 8 months old. Like I was just wanting to get him out, sniffing. But I'm glad he's in pretty good condition because that made it a lot easier. Like I would have been a lot more worried with all the underbrush and stuff. But he did good.
I guess one thing that I haven't started doing yet, but it's going to start picking up into my rotation. I really want to get on some early goose field hunting opportunities this year. So I'll spend some time putting miles on the car and just seeing if I get lucky and find a farmer who's cut early for silage or for something like that. Unfortunately, around our area, that's kind of the waterfowl hunting opportunity for early goose is going to be field hunting. So it'll be a lot of miles in the car, but trying to find, just an open field that's somewhat productive that we can set up on. So that'll be worked into the radar here in the next couple weeks.
Don't look past green fields too, or that early season, the pasture fields, especially if they've got a little pond out there where the cattle feed, they can be awesome if you find those with geese using them. Usually they're only good for like one hunt, but you can
1 or 2 shoots and they move on. Yeah.
That's a great point too.
Early goose, it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah,
it will.
September 1st to 15th.
Change up all the camo on your layout blinds because it's all green.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else anyone want to talk about that they're getting prepped for? Not just deer season, so we've got goose season, upland season.
I don't think so. I might try some fishing. I heard Curtis, before we hopped on, we were just kind of chatting, and he was saying how good the catfishing has been, across much of the Midwest the past week and couple weeks. So I might have to give that a try later this week or weekend on one of the evenings. Give that the old college try.
Yeah, been good. A lot of them catfish, flatheads and whatnot, just came off their nest and were hungry. And then we got this huge flood event that probably made it tough for them to feed for a little bit. They kind of laid low, and now we're getting back to normal. The water's still a little up. There's plenty of food around, and some people are making some nice catches. So definitely time to hit up your catfish spots if you are so inclined.
Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that. My freezer's a little low. on the
So we've been doing a little shed antler practice too.
That's always fun.
That's his favorite.
Mentioning freezer is a good one too. I mean, if you want to go through your freezer and kind of make sure you got room for the next year, kind of go through, kind of mark out what you got still left over, and get a good idea if something got hidden in the back there that you want to make sure you get.
There's always some piece that got tucked back.
Get some type of crock pot and rice meal going. I know Curtis has done that with us a couple times where we had about 3 different animals in the old crock pot and rice. But
the Midwest gumbo.
Don't ask.
Nope, it tasted great. It tastes great. Yeah, I remember we fed it. It was a raccoon workshop we had. He brought it down there, and there was a group of guys that were there from the Raccoon Club. And Curtis told him what was in it, and then one old fellow was like, "Sounds to me like someone cleaned out their freezer."
I don't even remember what was in there now. Yeah. The annual.
Anyway, now's a good time of year to do that.
That's a great point.
Yep.
And figure out what you're doing processing wise. That's one thing my wife and I give quite a bit of thought to is, hey, if we kill a fall turkey, do we want to spend the time processing it, or hey, do we want to keep it whole and maybe save it for Thanksgiving? So it's always a good time to go through that thought process. And I think it's a lot easier to figure out what you want to do with the potential harvest before that harvest comes. Because when that harvest, there's so much on your mind, getting the reporting done, getting it out in the field, making sure you don't pop the stomach when you're field, all these different things. And so having some of that headspace already figured out beforehand just makes when you get in that moment a lot easier. Like, no, I wanted to keep this whole backstrap as one giant piece because I'm going to do a big meal for a bunch of people, little things like that. So I agree. Yeah. And some thoughts of how you're going to cook it, and then your freezer space for sure.
Yep. And also, if you want to process it yourself, I'm going to try doing that this year. I'm going to get me some folding tables and probably get a hoist or a hook installed in the garage roof there, and go through everything I need to do to make sure I can process at home. So that way, it save me some money, and also make sure I know where my meat's at all times and stuff like that. So,
and life pro tip: if you're looking for an easy crank hoist, check Craigslist. I actually just bought one like a week or 2 ago. It can pull like 2,000 pounds, but I got it for $15. Somebody was just getting rid of a bunch of stuff and saw it. So there's always options out there. You don't have to buy a specific deer hoist that's going to be marketed to hunters and cost $299. Mm-hmm. You can get something really, really affordable that'll do just as good.
Yep. So let's definitely start planning that right now.
Yeah.
I think Jacob was really disappointed. My husband, we didn't get any squirrels because that was his plan for breakfast for the week, was to make oatmeal and biscuits. So he had to pivot, make some breakfast burritos. He's like, man,
that's funny.
He was all prepared, had all the ingredients. I was like,
squirrel, the breakfast of champions.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think those are the real key parts of prepping for the season.
Yeah, and let us know what you guys are doing. There's always, and that's what I find so interesting about just talking about hunting, talking about the outdoors, because it's really whatever experience you want to make it. So everyone has a different way to prep. Everyone has, different ways they do things. So if there's something we completely missed that you spend a lot of time on and you give a lot of value, let us know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Yeah. Come out to one of our events. We've got a lot. We talked about season prep. If you need to get your archery equipment in gear and make sure you're competent with it, check out our upcoming 3D shoots across the state. Maybe a few chances to win things, but it'll be a lot of chances to get better with your equipment and a lot of fun. So definitely check out all of our upcoming events. Hopefully see you there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.